I'm Paul Needler. I am the founder of iParcelBox. We're the UK's leading at-home smart parcel delivery box, and iParcelBox takes away that stress and inconvenience of missed parcel deliveries for consumers. But also for couriers, it guarantees a successful first-time delivery. The first delivery to an empty iParcelBox is automatically accepted, and then subsequent deliveries that day can be authorised remotely by the consumer using the iParcelBox app, where they can also connect their CCTV camera so that they can see who is making the delivery. Today really isn't about iParcelBox though. It's about the fact that actually through my role there, I've had a lot of involvement across the sector and really identified this real impetus for some objective research around the relative emissions around at-home and out-of-home deliveries. Firstly, we know that consumers are much more conscious than ever before about the environmental impact of shopping habits. In fact, Jack Sims from Doddle in his presentation at 10 o'clock this morning flagged that 77% of consumers are worried about that impact. Logistics operators are also being challenged to reduce their emissions. They're increasingly driving towards out-of-home solutions, predominantly because it allows the courier to deliver parcels in bulk at a single location and pass the responsibility of that final part of the last mile to the consumer. Through this, they're able to not only significantly reduce their emissions, but also their costs. And it's no surprise that they're championing this. But whilst it's great for them that they can reduce their emissions, their calculations often ignore the consumer collection element. I was at a conference a year or so ago presented by the University of Hull, and actually as a Hull-based business ourselves, we picked up in a conversation afterwards with them that there's very limited academic research objectively looking into this issue of what are the holistic emissions associated with parcel deliveries. Online shoppers we've seen are often encouraged to collect their e-commerce parcels from a collection point or locker as being the more environmentally friendly option. Again, from Jack this morning, we saw the examples of Farmerline showing that green leaf against the Pudo option, saying that it was more environmentally friendly. But actually, without there being some real objective academic research, as an industry, are we at risk of greenwashing consumers in terms of selecting what we're telling them is the more sustainable option without being able to prove so? The university, as part of our discussion after this conference a year or so ago, said that actually they'd be very interested in looking into this topic, and they wanted to lead some research into this area. They introduced me to Aura Innovation Centre, part of the university, who were potentially able to support some funding around this research. So we came across through these conversations at a really simple question. For consumers, how do we help them answer this question? Is it better for the environment to get my parcels delivered to the door or to a pickup point? Before we show you the outcome of the research that university led, I'd like to hand over to Dave Dawson to give a little bit more of an introduction to Aura Innovation Centre, what they do and why they supported this research. Dave.
Thanks, Paul, and morning, everybody. So yes, our Innovation Centre is part of the University of Hull. It's a £12 million facility originally set up to help SMEs in the region transition to a low carbon economy. And that has all sorts of different connotations around it. So basically, it's a physical asset and a service delivery which helps businesses in the region transition. But more than that, it's an extra resource and capability hub. So it's there to provide services and equipment and access to workshops which enable businesses to really step up and be able to access things straight away where ordinarily they wouldn't be able to get involved. The type of work that we help with is from original concept through to market analysis, feasibility studies and testing, really up to prototype stage. So it's really the very early stage ideas before it gets to the commercialization areas. So there's two areas in terms of how we can help. As I say, it's the physical assets. Paul, are you able to just move one on? This is a centre which is just over the bridgehead, so it's in between the North Bank and the South Bank. It's got a mixture of state-of-the-art conferencing facilities. It also has a range of equipment that businesses can really leverage, things around augmented reality, virtual reality suites, materials characterization suites, also 3D printing and scanning, and things around development of PCB boards, which have been used in logistics for tracking parcels. initial stage development and very quick prototyping, rather than having to send it all over the place to get different pieces of kit back and wait for that period of time. You can do iterative designs within 24 hours and keep rolling them on that basis. So it really is I need something to move, and I need to move it quickly. Let's get hold of us and let's move it. It was originally set up for SMEs. The funding for the SMEs in terms of some of these projects is moving forward, but we are now starting to work UK and globally with large enterprise companies, which really kind of take us into the next step, which is the Logistics Institute. That's it. So as I say, we bring together, my role is to work with businesses to really get a deep understanding of what your requirements are, to really help you try and navigate what that sustainability looks like and what could be prioritized to help you move it forward. So we work department by department, or we work with anybody from new ideas through to smaller teams and, like I say, global players. From a logistics department, although we work across all faculty areas, the Logistics Institute is one of the highest ranking in the UK, and they've been working on multimodal transport, which is kind of where this links into the work that Paul was doing on iParcelBox. So from a logistic point of view, our team have been looking at how all of these transport modes kind of interplay and how they can be optimized. Paul's passion for the subject kind of aligned us in terms of what we were doing, and he had some different ideas around how we could look at the optimization from business to consumers rather than business to business, which is where majority of our work's been done, which is why it kind of touched all of the different research areas. So it's great to see the outputs that Paul's going to go into it, and some of the information that's come out, which has been very interesting to see and will help support research. So a very quick fire intro in terms of what we do and how we go. Obviously, it'd be great to speak to different people with different ideas. Paul, I'll hand back over to you, and thank you very much.
That's great. Thanks very much, David. So yeah, it was great for me, having kind of come up with a basic context in terms of some research, to be able to hand this over to Dave as the project manager who led it with the university to then take this forward. And the outcome of the research is a carbon calculator, which I'm going to take you through now and show some examples. It's been created specifically to be objective. It's research led, and actually it helps consumers work out the difference between at-home and out-of-home parcel deliveries in terms of the emissions. The whole intention of it is that using this tool, consumers can see their total emissions and allow themselves to make informed decisions about things based on their personal circumstances. It very much recognises that there isn't a one-fits-all here. You can't simply say delivery to a pickup point is better for the environment, or delivery to home will be. Different circumstances for different consumers will drive different answers. We've provided the link to the website there. Anybody can go and have a look, but I'm actually just going to take you through some pre-prepared screenshots to show you exactly how it works, using a couple of examples to give a feel for why my point about it's not one fits all is so important. The aims of the project in terms of how it works is really quite a simple premise. Firstly, the calculator looks at what would the emissions be if it was an at-home parcel delivery. It then looks at, if it was an out-of-home delivery, firstly, what would the emissions be for the logistics provider delivering to the locker or the pickup point? And then, based on criteria entered into the tool by the consumer, what would the consumer's emissions be to then collect appropriate, I think you still got it, suggest the most appropriate option between the two. And the aim of this is that customers can reduce their overall emissions by selecting the most appropriate option. So here's the tool. Here's what it looks like. If you go to it now on the website, you'll find the same thing. And it's really quite a simple exercise. So I'm going to run through 2 or 3 examples with you just to show how it works. For the first one, I've chosen an example in central London. Down on the left-hand side, you can see that I've entered a home address. This is just a picked example at random of somebody that perhaps lives at G Street in London in EC1. And their local pickup point for an every parcel happens to be their local Tesco Express just down the road. And in this example, I've suggested the customer's gone in and entered those, and they've selected that they will be collecting their parcel by walking to the pickup point. So you simply enter those couple of data points, and then when you press calculate, it will then tell you what the emissions are associated with that option. So here on the map, point A is their home. Point B is their local Tesco Express, which is their nearest pickup point. And the calculator has calculated the difference between the two. So in this instance, For them to go and collect that parcel, the combined emissions, including the logistics provider delivering to the Tesco and then picking up on foot, so therefore no emissions, is 45 grams of carbon equivalent. If they were to have had that parcel delivered directly to their home, in this instance, it would have been approximately 181. So actually, for this particular example, the best option for them is for them to have their parcels delivered to their local Tesco Express and for them to walk to pick them up. It's a great example of where consolidated deliveries to pickup points, to automated lockers and to things like that is absolutely the best solution. And in this example, the customer can clearly see the recommendation is that they should be collecting their parcels from their drop box, they should be walking there, and actually that's going to give them the lowest emissions in terms of their parcels. Another example, this one a little bit closer to home. I've put in the postcode here of the Logistics Institute for the University of Home, where this research was led from and indeed this website created from. Their nearest collection point is actually an in-post locker just down the road at the Good Fellowship Inn in Hull. I've again put those examples in, so if somebody's at work and they've had their parcel delivered to their local locker as an option, and they're going to collect it at lunchtime, they're going to drop in the car, it's a mile up the road, what would it look like? In this example, again, you can see the map. Here is the university, here is the pickup point. It's not far away, but actually it's 3 kilometers as a round trip, probably too long to walk to quickly in your lunch break. They've elected to drive. And so in this instance, once the emissions associated with them driving to collect it, added to the emissions of the original delivery to the pickup point, are compared against what it would have been if the courier had delivered it directly to their end location, you can see that in this example, actually, they would save over 350 grams of carbon equivalent if they'd simply had it delivered to their home in the first place. And so I think this really proves that the minute the consumer starts using any kind of vehicle which is creating emissions to go and pick up their parcels, it very quickly erodes the sustainability benefit of parcels being delivered to a pickup point. But you might say, yes, but hang on. In reality, that customer is much more likely to stop on the way home and pick up that parcel, not make a dedicated journey. And clearly in a dedicated journey, the emissions are that they've got to get from the university to the Good Fellowship Inn, to the in-post locker and back again. So it's almost doubling the emissions. Surely that's not realistic. And many of the couriers and the logistics companies recommending the use of pickup points and out-of-home delivery will refer to not only walking distance, but also trip chaining. So in the third example we've used here, we've taken that into account. We've used the same start location. We've used the same pickup point as the Good Fellowship Inn. But in this example, I've recognised that actually this customer is going to combine the pickup of their parcel with a trip they were going to do anyway to a road just down the road in Hull. Maybe that's their home location and they're working from the university in this example. So it allows you within the calculator to take that into account, and it will consider the relative emissions of that as a result. So if we run the calculation here, you can now see they started at the university, they went via the in-post locker, and then they've continued on their journey to end up at their final destination. The overall journey in this instance was 5.4 kilometers. Actually, the pickup element was a slight detour, overall a detour of 1.1 kilometers. It significantly changed the profile in terms of the emissions. The overall emissions just for the collection element now, so it ignores the journey that they were going to do anyway, has now dropped. It's only 224 grams. But in this particular example, when compared against a home delivery, it's actually still slightly more. So even though they've done trip chaining in this example, they weren't going directly there. There was a small detour. And overall, in this instance, for this consumer, it would still have been a more environmentally friendly option, reduced emissions, if they had had the parcel delivered directly to their home. So the purpose of this tool, which is freely available to everybody, is really to help raise awareness. It's not a one-fits-all. Are we in danger as an industry of greenwashing consumers by proposing to them that out-of-home delivery is more sustainable, when, although that will be the case in certain instances, and particularly in the highest density urban locations, where they truly can walk a couple of 100 meters to a pickup point, that, as this tool will recommend, is likely to be the most sustainable. There will be many, many situations where actually the lowest emissions will be delivered through a fleet delivery on a planned route, using an optimized route and vehicles to deliver them to their home location. What are we trying to achieve through this? As I say, it's raising awareness. Are you, as retailers, as couriers, as members of the industry, bold enough to give this option and this information, this objective research to the consumers and allow them to make their own informed decisions about actually what is the best option for them in their circumstances? We've heard from this morning, not from us, but from Doddle, that 77% of consumers are concerned about the impact of their deliveries on the environment and the sustainability associated with them. So as an industry, what are we going to do to make sure that we are not greenwashing those customers? We're not simply chucking a green flag against the option that we would like them to choose because it helps us as members of the industry reduce our emissions, perhaps as couriers, without taking into account the holistic impact. And what are we going to do to make sure that those consumers can use real, objective, academic research as the basis to make a fair and informed decision about the sustainability options that are best for them? Nick, back to you and any questions.
Just a quick one on all of this. Is it not? I'm sure that people see not just the logic, but why it works. But when you work on this case by case, don't you use efficiencies? Not on the courier side, on delivery side. Is it not less efficient for a company?
What, to deliver at home or to deliver to Pudo?
To have to deal with this not being able to probably, every single case is different, which is true, but then
it is, and I think what this is about driving consumer behavior. There will be instances where actually delivery to pickup points is the most sustainable option, and we want customers in that instance to be selecting that option. This is about actually getting the right solution for the industry and the environment. This is not about somehow trying to propose for one particular supplier. Where it's more sustainable, we want customers to be choosing that option, but we want them to do it based on the facts. Where it's likely to be not the most sustainable option, we want customers at the point at checkout, perhaps, to be aware of those situations and making their decisions in terms of, do they choose as the consumer to have their parcel delivered to an out-of-home solution, or do they choose home delivery? So this isn't about necessarily the couriers at point of delivery driving this, because we want to give the consumers the ability to make their own informed decisions through the use of tools like this and other tools. And I think part of this is about actually encouraging there to be more scrutiny around this, more challenge around it. We welcome more academic research if there is. Dave, you and the team have done some great work from the University of Hull. Actually, what other universities out there, what other research can there be to open up this topic? So it doesn't just become out of home is more sustainable, use it, when actually the academic research tells us that isn't always the case.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, both. I will have to move forward, but as well as with all the previous two topics, we are also working quite a lot with iParcel and moving on working with Hull on all of these topics a bit later. Now, thank you very much, Paul and David.